𝐤𝐄𝐄𝑚, Mafians and Mafianas. I hope you're all good this Sunday here. The sun's gone for a hike today, but we're going to go ahead and do it, yeah? The Hanoverian period, House Hanover, and the Great Reset of the 1800s, yeah? Let's dance. Yeah, so another period of British history that's really obscure, like there's nothing clear about it, is the House of Hanover, yeah? Queen Victoria just before, and the House of Hanover that comes directly after her, yeah? That is a real obscure part of British history, because when you think about it, there's no photographs of these people. There's hardly any, there's none photographs. There's just paintings. A lot of these paintings are done by anonymous painters, when we know that these are European black nobility and monarchs of the 1600s and 1800s. They had specific painters, court painters, that was their painter throughout their whole life or their whole time as the king. They didn't just let anybody's son or daughter just come from the street and say, I want to paint you. You understand? You had to be the official painter of the king or queen to paint the king or queen. And there were certain years when certain work it would have been normal for the work to be done in the year of coronation and stuff like that. You understand? But we look at these, the House of Hanover, George I, George II, George III, yeah, coming up, and there's no photographs of these guys. It's just paintings and really dubious, suspect paintings that don't match up to the descriptions that's left about these monarchs, yeah? So let me say this. The House of Hanover comes from a region in Germany that's known as Hanover, and it's linked into Prussia and the Austria-Prussia wars and stuff. It's also linked into the 30 Years' War that happened in Germany from 1618 to 1648, okay? So all of this is linked up. I think before it was called Hanover, it was called the territory of Brunswick-Lunenburg. Brunswick-Lunenburg, yeah, got turned into Hanover, yeah? And so these Hanoverians, or these black Germans, came over into England and also ruled on the English throne. We're talking about George I, the very first one, yeah? George II, George III, George IV, George V, George VI, yeah? So these Hanoverians, yeah, they came over in a time in like the 1700s. I think around 1715 is when George III, number 3, yeah, was on the throne. And this is at the time when all this colonialism's going on with the British Empire. They starting up colonies in the Caribbean, their colonies in the Americas. The American War of Independence happened under George III's watch, in the time of the House of Hanover. Remember, they were running this slavery thing hard. We're talking about degenerative Moorish bloodlines. So we could call them mixed race or mulatto, or you could simply call them black. Do you understand? These are degenerative Moorish bloodlines that are running all this colonialism and slavery around the world to empower themselves, to empower their empire, their social circles, their family circles. This is what these guys were doing. So they weren't good guys just because they were black or just because they're Moorish in heritage. There's nothing good about these people, okay? Anyway, so America declares itself independent in 1776. They had been fighting against the British Empire, the House of Hanover, so that Americans could keep their own wealth, because the crown was just taking all of the wealth for the crown. And the Americans was like, yo, this is the end, we keeping our stuff. So that led to the Civil War, okay? So when you hear the Emancipation Proclamation, when they said, okay, we abolishing slavery, yeah, slavery was not abolished. It was never abolished. A proclamation is not a law. That's just a bunch of chaff that some colonizer said. He ain't got no right to make no laws. He can't make no laws. So all they can do is proclaim, is make a proclamation. A proclamation is not like legally binding or nothing. It's not no law. It's just someone saying any old chat. So when they announced the Emancipation Proclamation, they never really ended slavery. What they did is extend slavery to all of the colonies, everybody in every colony everywhere on earth, yeah? Black, white, brown, whatever. So slavery was no longer a thing just for African slaves, as they say it. It's now for everyone, meaning you have to pay for water, you have to pay for gas, sorry, that's the wind. You have to pay for gas, you have to pay to breathe, yeah? How did we get to this? How come you have to pay for everything to live on earth? How come animals don't have to pay for water? How come the birds don't have to pay for water? How come they don't have to pay to build a house? You have to pay even to build a house. You have to have planning permission and all this stuff here. Where did all these rules and stuff come from? Yeah, who made up all of this stuff? Let me tell you, it's slavery. Each one of you is in slavery. That's why you have to wake up early in the morning to go and work for a next man who's only going to give you crumbs, while you're empowering his entire legacy or family. Yeah, it's probably some European or Asian or somebody who don't look like you anyway, and you working for them. You probably hate your job. You don't even like it. Yeah, it's only giving you crumbs. It's giving you crumbs, bare minimum. Crumbs is on your table in comparison to what's on the people you're working for, what's on their table. So this is a slavery. Like I said, you have to pay for water. You have to pay to live. You have to pay just as much to die, yeah? Because when they gave the Emancipation Proclamation, it was a historic, it's not just a, it's not a geological reset per se, it's a historical reset where they changed the narrative, they changed the characters, yeah? That was the real nobility, and substitute them for some GMO nobility or GMO royalty. So this picture that you see here, they told us in their official narrative that this is Sarah Bonita Forbes, and she's the goddaughter of Queen Victoria. Some African monarch gave his daughter as a gift, yeah, to Queen Victoria. That's what they tell us, these Mzungus. They tell us this in the false narrative that they've given us, yeah? There's no evidence for this whatsoever. They always say one of three things. Anytime there's a black nobility that they want to replace, in the new narrative, there'll either be an African slave or a descendant of an African slave, and they offer no hard evidence, no tangible evidence to prove these things. They just make up this stuff when they're creating these new narratives. So this is Sarah Bonita Forbes. They told us this is the goddaughter of Queen Victoria, and she adopted her. And then the mad thing is, yeah, they was gonna kill this child, this girl, and then all of a sudden someone objected, and then some colonel offered her as a gift to the queen. You see how bogus this is, you understand? So they tell us this is her. And the mad thing is, if the queen is so concerned with saving a child like this, how come there's no pictures of her and the Queen Victoria? There's no pictures whatsoever of this child that was saved by the royal family, yeah, by the queen. There's no pictures with the queen and this woman. Make it make sense. You can't make it make sense because it does not make sense. It's a false narrative. They've lied to us. They need us to believe this stuff and believe that each and every one of us in a prominent position throughout history is some type of African slave or the descendant of an African slave. Do you understand? This Sarah Bonita Forbes, in my opinion, is Queen Victoria. That's why in a lot of the pictures, they're holding the same tools or objects in the same position, yeah? Come on, this is the Matrix. Why would the pictures, so many of the pictures be the same, holding the same object, sometimes having on the same clothes and that? Are you telling me, they just dressed her up to look like Queen Victoria? This here is Edward VII. But they tell us these are just Africans or African slaves that gained favor in the court of kings and stuff like that. It's a lie. So this great reset of the 1800s is much deeper than you would imagine. This fella here, this is a painting of George I. That's George I. That's how he looked. This here this is George III. They gave us some Nigerian name and told us this is some Nigerian, yeah, that's just walking around the royal court. So this is how they reset the world in the 1800s with the Great Reset. And now they got you paying for everything. You have to pay to watch telly. You have to pay to drive your car. You have to pay for everything living while you're living. And then you have to pay just as much just to die. Go figure. And nobody's speaking out about it. Nobody's really questioned, yo, how did the world get to this? How come we're paying for everything? And the people that are charging, yeah, are white folks. People who don't even come from none of these lands. They come from the mountains, the caves. And they're able to reset this to reset this thing in such a way, or they were used to reset this thing in such a way that you're now paying for everything with no pushback. Yeah, they can pollute the skies, they can pollute the seas, yeah, they can make hybrid creatures, hybridized stuff, they can make GMO crops and seeds and mash up our ecosystem, and nobody says nothing. We all just slaves. We all just want to wake up and chase the bag. Everybody's got this mad dream of getting rich. Let me just work hard. If I work hard, I'm gonna be rich. That's bullshit. Because none of these elite families that's in power now is work hard for anything. The only thing they've worked hard for is to erase the true history of the planet. And this is how they've done it. So they've replaced all the European black nobilities by saying it's just Africans or African slaves, the descendants of African slaves, yeah, with these GMO folks, these actors. These people that they've given us, these is not the real kings and queens. These pictures that they've fashioned for us from the earliest, man. I'm talking about from the Plantagenet kings all the way up to this Hanover shit that we're talking about. This is how they broke and restructured the world. And now it's all unraveling. People like me sound crazy because most of us drank the Kool-Aid. We really fell for this shit. We really believed in these white folks and their false narrative, and we disbelieved in us. Oh, black people are this, black people are that. And don't get me wrong, black people are in a bad place right now. The whole world's in a bad place. Black people ain't doing no better than no one else. Let me tell you, 7.9 billion people on the world. There's only 144,000 is gonna survive and reset this bitch. Meaning shit's gonna start again, just like it's already happened in Genesis. Go to Genesis 3:22, that's a great reset. Look, now the man's become like one of us. He's become too smart. Yo, reset. Look at the story of Noah, Genesis 7. Yo, a great flood, wipe, reset. There's loads of resets going on in your Bible, in your Quran, in your Torah. Most of you have just so programmed into this shit narrative, you can't even see the truth when it's right in front of your face. That's why they keep saying, if you want to keep anything from a black person, what do they say? Put it in a book, right? Yeah, so what they were able to do, yeah, is they were able to use the slavery thing to their advantage. That Emancipation Proclamation, that's just a fancy speech. So once they had all of these sovereign indigenous people in slavery all over the world, in all these British colonies, they decided, okay, we're not gonna end slavery. When we end slavery, all we're really gonna do is extend it to the entire world, yeah? So, everything the slaves were doing, like working for shit pay or no pay at all, eating the most low quality food, being dehumanized and treated like animals, that's everything that's happening to you now in the world on a larger scale. We have to pay for everything. We got road tax, we got car tax, fuel tax, you understand? Death tax, you have to pay to die. We have to pay for everything. They're soon gonna probably charges for the air. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this is a slavery thing. When they proclaimed, made this fancy speech that slavery is abolished, and they made all these new bills and acts and legislations and proclamations and stuff, it trapped everyone into this modern system of slavery. It's not a system of living. We're not living. We're just simply existing. This is a slavery system that we're living in. That's why man wake up early in the morning to go and work for a next man and stuff rather than working for you. You can't just simply do what you want to do no more. Everything has to run through the government. The government is the same slave masters. The police is the same slave masters. The justice system is the same slave masters that's serving the interests of this elite group. You understand? The nobility, the kings and queens, the corporations. So what we're living in this modern world is slavery. You're still a slave. If you're still in this system voting for some dude to rule over you and tell you what you can and can't do, yeah, you're a part of the problem too. You're asleep. You drank the Kool-Aid. And this is why all of us are living in this modern world thinking, what the hell is going on with this world? This is fucking hell on earth. There's war everywhere. Yeah, everything is run by a handful of rich white dudes in their late 40s or 50s. You understand? They literally own every corporation. Yeah, they run everything. They make every decision, important decision. You're not involved. You're not even invited to the discussion. But we want to walk around here, yeah, believing in fairy tales. Yeah, they gave us them religions, so the poor man won't run out right now behind what I'm saying and go wipe out these idiots. You understand? I've said enough. Mafia for life.